The trench reeked of ozone and burned soil, the ground shaking with the rhythm of artillery. Sergeant Mason Hale pressed his back against the mud wall, breathing through grit and exhaustion. His armor was cracked, his pulse hammering through his temples, but his grin refused to fade. Next to him sat the being who had appended the war, the alien emissary named Kaylin, her skin glimmering like polished cobalt, her luminous hair flickering in shades of electric blue. Sparks drifted from her scalp with every tremor, each one dying before it reached the ground. Mason had learned not to flinch when it happened. She wasn't burning, she was alive. Kaylin turned toward him, eyes glowing like cold stars. "You shouldn't have stayed," she said softly, her voice a strange harmony of melody and static. "Your people call this zone lost." Mason chuckled, scraping dried mud off his glove. "Lost to who?" "You." He tilted his head, studying her with that reckless curiosity humans never learned to suppress. "You light up when you're angry. Kinda gives away your position, you know." She frowned, the blue light pulsing brighter, and Mason raised his hands as if warding off her glare. "Relax. I'm just saying, it's beautiful. Like a living signal flare." Her lips parted, confusion threading through the stoic mask she wore for her kind. The explosion that followed drowned out everything for a heartbeat. Dirt rained down as a nearby tank cannon roared, the shockwave flattening their ears. When the dust settled, Mason was still laughing. "If we're going to die here," he said between coughs, "I'd rather die next to something that looks like art." Kaylin's pupils dilated. For her species, it meant disbelief. "You find beauty in fire." He grinned. "Fire means we're still fighting. Means something's alive." The alien looked away, her hands trembling. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not even her own commanders, especially not them. They had met 3 days ago, when her people's forward post fell under human bombardment. Mason had been sent to retrieve any surviving intel, expecting corpses or ambush. Instead, he'd found her trapped beneath a collapsed energy conduit, bleeding silver light. Instead of shooting her, he had carried her out. She hadn't spoken then, not even as he dragged her through burning metal and the screams of both armies. She had only stared at him, the enemy, until the medics realized who she was and nearly opened fire themselves. It had taken every ounce of Mason's stubbornness to keep her alive and out of interrogation hands. Now, the two of them sat side by side in the last crater before the front line collapsed. The rest of his squad was gone. So were her guards. Around them, the world trembled under the endless duel of plasma and gunpowder. Mason's comms were dead, his rifle jammed, and Kaylin's luminous armor flickered with half-functioning circuits. "Your people won't stop," she said. "Even when you're broken." He looked up through the smoke toward the burning horizon. "Neither will yours. Guess that's what makes this war so stupid." She tilted her head, the motion almost human. "You mock your own cause." He shrugged. "Cause stopped mattering after the first 1,000 casualties. Now it's just surviving." Her expression softened, almost imperceptibly. The glow of her body dimmed slightly, becoming less harsh, more like candlelight. "And yet you stay. Even when logic says you should flee." Mason leaned back, smiling faintly. "Maybe humans don't always follow logic. Sometimes we follow gut. Or heart. Depends which one's louder that day." Kaylin studied him for a long time. She had been trained to read patterns of emotion, to recognize deception through micromuscles and pheromones, but what she saw now unsettled her. There was no deceit in him, only exhaustion and sincerity. Her hair flared softly as she asked, "Why did you save me, human?" Mason met her gaze. "Because you were alive." She blinked. "That is insufficient logic." He laughed quietly. "Yeah, we specialize in that." Silence settled between them. In the distance, the last artillery battery screamed its dying volley. Kaylin's fingers brushed against the ground, feeling the vibrations through the mud, and she whispered something in her native tongue, a low chord that shimmered like broken glass. Mason watched the faint waves of light ripple from her hand. "What was that?" he asked. "A farewell," she replied. "To those who fought and fell. We sing it when a battle consumes too many." He nodded solemnly. "We usually just curse and drink later." Her gaze flicked back to him, curiosity replacing grief. Do humans truly find solace in intoxication? Nah, he said with a smirk. We just pretend we do. The moment might have passed quietly, but Mason couldn't help himself. Humor was the only thing that kept fear from taking over. You know, he said, if I make it out of this, I'm gonna tell the brass I met a glowing blue goddess in the trenches. They'll never believe me. Kalen's eyes narrowed. Goddess? Well, look at you, he teased. You light up the dark. You talk like thunder wrapped in silk. Kinda makes the rest of us look plain. Her cheeks flickered with brighter light, like a sudden pulse of energy. Your speech, it confuses me. Good, he grinned. Confusion means you're thinking. She tried to retort, but her translator implant buzzed with static, making her flinch. Mason reached instinctively, steadying her shoulder. The contact sent sparks through both of them, literal ones, as her bioelectric field reacted. He winced, pulling back, and she gasped. The glow from her hair erupted in bright flame-like waves. I'm sorry, he said, laughing in surprise. Didn't mean to short-circuit you. But Kalen's breath came in sharp bursts, her eyes wide with shock. You touched me, she whispered. Your kind shouldn't survive that. Mason frowned. What do you mean? No one unshielded should touch an Etherian without being burned. He looked at his gloved hand, only faintly smoking. Guess I'm tougher than most. Her disbelief deepened, and the blue light around her grew chaotic. Your body resists energy discharge, she murmured. That's not possible. Lady, Mason said, still smiling despite the tremor in his arms, I've been told a lot of things aren't possible. Breathing this air without filters, surviving on 2 hours of sleep, cracking jokes in a war zone. Yet here I am. She stared at him, utterly still. For the first time since her capture, Kalen's composure fractured. You could harness it, she whispered. Your kind could channel us. Mason raised a brow. Channel you. Sounds like a bad pickup line. Her confusion lingered. Pickup line. He grinned wider. It's a thing we say when we're trying to charm someone. She processed that slowly, then blinked. You are attempting to charm me. Maybe, he said, leaning back. Depends if it's working. The air between them crackled, not just metaphorically. Her hair flared again, threads of light twisting upward into the smoky sky. Mason laughed softly. Wow. You really do light up when someone flirts with you. She turned away quickly, covering her mouth with her hand. Do not jest, she warned, though her voice lacked conviction. Such emotions are forbidden during conflict. Guess I'm breaking all kinds of rules then, he replied. Their eyes met, and for a fleeting heartbeat, the war around them faded. The artillery thunder became a distant echo, the smell of mud and plasma washed out beneath the ozone perfume of her energy field. She saw in him something terrifying and fascinating, the raw, unpredictable warmth of a creature that refused to yield to despair. He saw in her something that defied every command he'd ever followed, proof that not all enemies were meant to be destroyed. Mason smiled, leaning closer, voice low but steady. If we survive this, maybe I'll conquer your world just to earn a kiss. The words slipped out before he could stop them. Kalen froze. The glow in her hair surged, climbing in color until it burned pure sapphire. Her pupils contracted to silver pinpoints, her breath hitching audibly. What did you say? He chuckled nervously. Relax, it's a joke. A promise, she whispered, trembling. You invoked conquest with affection. Among my kind, that means. Before she could finish, a blast struck nearby, sending both sprawling. Mason shielded her with his body, debris raining over them. When the smoke cleared, she was staring at him, eyes wide with something between awe and fear. The flames in her hair licked higher, bending toward him like drawn to gravity. Mason Hale, she said, voice shaking, your words bound me. Wait, what? He blinked, brushing dirt from his face. Bound you how? You challenged the covenant, she said, her glow brightening until the shadows retreated. And I accepted. He stared as the world around them dimmed, the light from her hair spilling across the crater like a sunrise. Well, he said finally, half grinning despite the absurdity. Guess that's one way to start a relationship. Kalen's reply came like a vow and a warning all at once. Then the stars will bear witness to what your heart just claimed. The earth trembled again, but this time, the tremor felt alive. The light from Kalen's hair burned brighter than the sky itself, blue fire curling in waves above the trench as if the heavens had taken notice. Mason blinked against the glow, raising his arm to shield his eyes. Her voice trembled between awe and warning. You don't understand what you've done. He laughed weakly, the kind of laugh a soldier gives when everything around him is already chaos. I rarely do. You'll have to explain it to me later, preferably somewhere that's not exploding. But her expression stayed fixed, eyes wide, glow trembling with emotion. You invoked an ancient right among my kind, she said. When an outsider declares conquest through affection, it binds energy and intent. My body answers to that vow until it's fulfilled or broken. Mason frowned, processing slowly. So what, you're magically engaged to me now? The ground shook as artillery thundered overhead, spraying dirt across their helmets. Kalen's hair flared again, scattering sparks that hissed out against the mud. Do not jest, she said, though her voice broke at the edges. It's not marriage, it's resonance. Our essences now share frequency. Mason smirked despite the chaos. Resonance, huh? Sounds romantic. Her lips parted in disbelief, and the glow intensified until even his armor reflected blue. You mock what could kill you. He tilted his head, still catching his breath. Lady, everything here could kill me. I stopped keeping score an hour ago. The corners of her mouth twitched, not quite a smile but something close, a crack in the mask of command she wore even as a captive. A whine from above drew their attention skyward, a drone swarm, black specks cutting through the haze. Mason cursed and dragged her down beside him. They're sweeping for survivors. We've got to move. Kalen hesitated, glancing at the energy crystal embedded in her gauntlet. I can disrupt their sensors for 30 seconds, no more. That's enough, he said, already hauling himself up the trench wall. Come on. She followed, her movements weightless yet precise, each step leaving faint blue light prints in the mud. Mason almost stopped to watch them, but another explosion snapped him back to reality. They sprinted between craters, ducking under fallen plating, until the last drone scream faded behind them. When they finally collapsed behind the husk of a destroyed shuttle, Mason pressed a hand to his earpiece, though it was long dead. I'm cut off from command. Closest evacs 20 clicks east. Kalen knelt beside him, her eyes flickering with light pulses. Your heart rate is unstable. You scanning me? You're emitting stress pheromones detectable to 10 meters, she said matter-of-factly. You're lucky none of my people are nearby. Oh yeah. Mason huffed, wiping grime from his face. Guess I'll try to stay calm, then. She studied him, then said softly, You saved me from the ruins. You could have left me to your soldiers. Mason shrugged. Didn't feel right. You looked terrified. She blinked. Terrified? Yeah. Like you'd already decided you were dead. Kalen turned away, her glow dimming. Among my kind, capture is fate worse than death. And among mine, he said quietly, saving someone who needs it, that's the whole point. Her eyes met his again, uncertain. You live by mercy. Nah, he said with a tired smile. By stubbornness. Mercy's just the side effect. A silence stretched between them. Kalen's hand drifted toward his, hovering inches away, trembling with residual charge. If I touch you again, she whispered, it could strengthen the resonance. It could also destroy you. He chuckled softly. Then maybe we shouldn't test it, yet. She looked startled by the word yet. It carried a promise humans seemed to use without realizing its gravity. The horizon flashed, then came the thunder of a rail cannon. Mason looked up. That's orbital-grade fire, he muttered. They're wiping sectors. Kalen's voice tightened. Your fleet breached the defense ring. My command will retaliate. He met her gaze. Then we'd better make sure they don't find us first. She hesitated, scanning the wreckage. If we follow the ridge east, There's an energy conduit beneath the surface. It leads to my people's sanctum. Sanctum. Sounds like a death trap. It's shielded. You'll survive longer there than out here. He nodded reluctantly. Then lead the way, Spark Hair. She shot him a glare that might have melted steel. Spark Hair. What? You want me to keep calling you Kaelin of the glowing doom? Her light flickered unpredictably, half frustration, half something warmer. Humans are insufferable. We try. They moved through the battlefield like ghosts, stepping over wrecks and bodies both human and alien. Every few minutes, Kaelin's hand would rise, releasing a faint pulse that bent light around them, warping visibility just enough to hide. Mason couldn't help marveling. You realize, he whispered once, you could end this war if you taught us how to do that. No, she replied sharply. Your kind would use it to kill more efficiently. You're not wrong, he admitted. But we'd still ask. Hours passed before they reached the edge of a canyon veined with blue minerals. Kaelin crouched, placing her palm against the rock. Here, she said. The passage lies beneath. Mason stared down at the pulsing fissures. You're sure it won't fry us? If it does, she said, you'll have kept your promise. Promise? To conquer my world. He blinked. That was a joke. Not anymore, she murmured. The ground opened like a heartbeat, revealing a tunnel spiraling into glowing darkness. Mason followed her down, his boots echoing against crystalline walls. The deeper they went, the quieter the war above became, until only the faint hum of energy filled the air. This place feels alive, he said. It is, Kaelin replied. The sanctum is grown, not built. It feeds on resonance. Like the bond thing you mentioned. Yes. It amplifies it. You shouldn't be here. Too late now. At the base of the tunnel, the passage widened into a chamber of mirrored stone. Floating orbs pulsed gently, lighting patterns that responded to Kaelin's movements. Mason looked around in awe. Your people don't do anything halfway, do they? This is sacred ground, she said. We honor the memory of creation here. He looked down, realizing his boots had tracked mud over what looked like liquid crystal. Ah, sorry. She almost smiled. It's all right. You've already broken one covenant today. What's one more? He set down his pack, exhaling hard. So what now? We wait. Kaelin knelt near one of the orbs, pressing her palms against it. Light surged up her arms, tracing glowing veins beneath her skin. I must warn my people. They will seek you, but I can delay them. And if they don't listen? She hesitated. Then I'll stand between you and them. Mason stared. You'd do that? For me? For the vow, she said softly. It is law. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I didn't mean to trap you in some vow. I just joke when I'm scared. She looked up, eyes shimmering. You fear, yet you laugh. You face death, yet you protect your enemy. I do not understand your kind. Neither do we, he said with a grin. The orb dimmed suddenly, its glow shifting to red. Kaelin stiffened. They've detected us. Mason grabbed his rifle, cursing. How many? An entire retrieval squad. Of course. She rose, her body blazing with energy. If you stay close to me, they may not recognize your signal. And if they do, then your war truly begins. A tremor ran through the chamber as figures descended from the upper tunnels, shapes like Kaelin, clad in armor that shimmered with alien fire. Their leader stepped forward, a towering figure with crystalline horns and a weapon that hummed like thunder. Kaelin of the radiant host, he said in a voice that cracked the air. You consort with the human. She stood tall, though her glow trembled. He is under my protection. The leader's eyes narrowed. You invoke an ancient right. For him. Mason raised his rifle, though it felt ridiculous. Look, we can all talk about this, the alien cut him off. Silence, fleshborn. You are prey. Yeah, I've heard that one before. Kaelin stepped in front of him, her body crackling. He's bound to me. The warriors around them froze. The leader's expression twisted from rage to disbelief. You would bind yourself to an off-worlder? You shame your kind. Then I'll bear it, she said. But you will not touch him. Light flared as the first spear struck the ground, humming with lethal energy. Mason shouted, pulling her aside, but she raised her hand, and the weapon dissolved mid-air, its energy folding back into her palm. Kaelin, the leader roared. You've doomed yourself. She turned her head slightly toward Mason. Get behind me. Not a chance, he said, standing shoulder to shoulder with her. If this vow's real, then I'm part of it too. The chamber erupted in blue fire. The blast filled the sanctum like a tidal wave of light, blue fire rushing outward in rippling shockwaves that bent the crystal walls and twisted sound itself into silence. Mason felt the air vanish from his lungs as he braced beside Kaelin, her energy field expanding to shield him. The alien warriors stumbled back, their armor sparking, weapons flickering out. For a heartbeat, the whole chamber was pure radiance, like standing inside the core of a living star. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the storm folded inward, collapsing into the glow of her trembling form. Mason coughed, smoke mixing with his breath. Remind me never to argue with you again, he rasped. Kaelin staggered, catching herself on the glowing orb. Her voice was barely audible. The bond amplified my pulse. I drew from the sanctum. Too much. He reached for her, instinct taking over, and this time when his hand touched her arm, he didn't flinch. The heat was there, wild, electric, but it didn't burn him. It flowed into him, sparking through his nerves like adrenaline. You're burning energy too fast, he said. You'll fry yourself. She looked up weakly. Then we burn together. The alien leader roared from the far side of the chamber, rallying his remaining soldiers. She's tainted. The sanctum rejects her. Mason steadied Kaelin, his own armor glowing faintly where it met her touch. Tainted? That what you call courage? He shouted back. The alien spear recharged with a crackling hum, and Mason moved before thinking, firing 3 bursts from his rifle. The bullets pinged off invisible shields, but the distraction gave Kaelin a second to recover. She lifted her arm, and the orb beside her exploded into a lattice of pure light, forming a barrier that rippled outward, cutting the enemy force in two. Mason dragged her toward a side tunnel, the floor alive with flickering energy veins. We can't win this, he said. You'll die if we stay. You misunderstand, she whispered, her voice trembling between pain and defiance. This isn't about winning. This is about awakening. He frowned, panting. That sounds like the kind of thing people say before something really bad happens. Her faint smile was almost human. You may not be wrong. They reached a narrow shaft lined with transparent crystal ribs, each one pulsing faintly with Kaelin's heartbeat. This leads to the resonant core, she said. It's the heart of the planet's consciousness. If I can reach it, I can sever the link between my kind's war network and the orbital fleets. Sever it? Mason asked. Won't that cut you off too? Yes, she said simply. But it may save your species. He stared at her. You'd betray your own people for mine. Not for yours, she replied, turning to face him fully. For the vow. Before he could respond, a low rumble filled the tunnel. Mason looked back to see the alien soldiers regrouping, their armor now burning with crimson light. They're adapting, he said. And we're running out of room. Kaelin raised her hand, eyes glowing. Then I will not hold back. Her body became pure brilliance, the tunnel shaking as the walls absorbed her surge. Mason shielded his face as she unleashed a torrent of energy that raced through the passage like lightning. The pursuing warriors screamed as their armor shattered, their bodies dissolving into starlight. When the light dimmed, Kaelin collapsed to her knees. He caught her before she fell. Her skin was cold now, the glow flickering like a dying flame. You can't keep doing that, he said. You're tearing yourself apart. She looked up weakly. Then, let me rest in your warmth a moment. He blinked, unsure if she meant it literally or not. Her body leaned against his chest, and her voice softened. Your heart, so loud, so chaotic. It frightens and fascinates me. Mason tried to joke, though his throat tightened. Yeah, we humans have a habit of making noise until the universe pays attention. And if it doesn't, she asked faintly, then we yell louder. Her lips curved faintly at that. The glow in her hair stabilized a little, dimming to a soft blue flame. For a moment, the war above didn't matter. The rumble of artillery became a heartbeat, the flicker of light a lullaby. Then Kalen whispered, "They'll come again soon. My people don't accept failure." Mason nodded grimly. "Then we move. Show me the way to that core." She hesitated. "If we reach it, there's no coming back." "Wasn't planning to anyway." Her eyes widened. "You would die here." "If it means ending this," he said, "and keeping that vow thing from killing you, yeah." Something in her expression broke then, a shimmer like sorrow and wonder all at once. "You speak of love as if it's armor." "Maybe it is," he said. "Maybe that's what humans do best. Turn feelings into shields." She reached out, brushing her fingertips across his cheek. Tiny arcs of light leapt between them, glowing brighter than any torch. "Then may your shield hold, Mason Hale." "Only if you stop trying to be the bullet," he muttered. The tunnel opened into a cavern unlike anything he'd seen. The resonant core floated at its center, a sphere of translucent light suspended in the air, threads of blue energy weaving into the rock around it like veins in a living body. The hum in the air was alive, rhythmic, as if the entire world were breathing through that heart. Mason stopped, awed. "This is your planet's brain." "Its soul," Kalen corrected. "And its cage." She stepped forward, placing her hands on the sphere. Instantly, her glow flared to full intensity, merging with the core's rhythm. Mason felt the air tighten, static crawling across his skin. "Kalen," he called. "What's happening?" "The link is open," she said through clenched teeth. "I can reroute the war signal, but the energy backlash will destroy this chamber." Mason's instinct screamed to pull her away, but the look in her eyes stopped him. "Don't," she said softly. "If you break the link now, both our species fall back into chaos. Let me finish." He clenched his fists, torn between reason and instinct. Then he heard it, the echo of boots behind him. He turned to see the alien leader entering, his armor cracked, his face burning with rage. "You would merge our world with a human's corruption," he bellowed. Kalen didn't answer. Mason raised his rifle again. "Back off." The alien sneered. "You defend what you cannot comprehend." "That's kind of our thing," Mason said and fired. The shots shattered harmlessly against the leader's armor. The alien lunged, faster than thought, his weapon arcing down. Mason barely dodged. The blade carved through the air, sizzling. The impact threw him against the wall. His vision blurred, his ribs screaming. Kalen cried out, breaking concentration. The core's light flickered dangerously. Mason forced himself up, staggering toward her. The leader raised his weapon again. "You don't belong in her world," he growled. "Neither of us do," Mason spat. "But maybe we can make one that does." He tackled the alien mid-swing. The energy blade cut through his shoulder plate, burning flesh beneath, but he didn't stop. He drove his knee into the alien's chest, grabbed the weapon handle, and twisted. The weapon broke with a flash, releasing a surge of unstable energy. The explosion hurled both men across the chamber. Mason hit the ground hard, armor cracking. The alien didn't rise again. The core pulsed violently, its rhythm spiraling out of control. Kalen turned toward him, her expression one of horror and awe. "You disrupted the containment field," she said. "It's collapsing." He gritted his teeth. "Then finish it." "If I do," she said, her glow intensifying to blinding brilliance, "I can't come back." He forced a weak grin. "Guess I'll finally see if that blue fire of yours feels warm." Her eyes softened. "You're a fool." "Yeah," he breathed, collapsing beside her. "But I'm your fool." She laughed, a sound like wind through starlight, and pressed her palm against his chest. "Then let our worlds meet through you." The light consumed everything. Light swallowed everything. For an endless moment there was no ground, no air, no sound, only the rush of heat and the sensation of falling through brightness itself. Mason didn't know if he was dead, dreaming, or suspended in something between. When he finally drew a breath, it burned like ice. The world around him shimmered in fluid motion, not solid matter but streams of radiant energy. Above and below were the same, endless sky made of living light. Kaylin floated a few meters away, her body a silhouette of blue flame within the chaos. Her voice reached him without sound. We're inside the resonance field. The core has collapsed inward. He tried to move but found no weight. Feels like swimming through lightning. Kaylin's expression was unreadable as she drifted closer. You survived the merge. That should be impossible. Mason managed a weak grin. Story of my life. He looked around, watching tendrils of light curl and twist like veins. So, this is your planet Sol? Looks a bit overcrowded. These are memories, she said softly. Every thought, every sacrifice, every death recorded by the Etherians since the first breath of our world. Mason frowned. You're saying your planet's literally alive and keeping score? Yes, she answered, and it's judging us both. A deep rumble filled the void. The light thickened, coalescing into vague shapes, figures formed from luminous mist. They towered above them, faces indistinct but eyes glowing with intelligence older than civilization itself. Kaylin bowed her head. The ancestors. Mason, ever the human, just whispered, great. Giant glowing ghosts. Why not? One of the forms spoke, its voice like wind across chasms. You've brought corruption into the sacred bond. Kaylin's glow flickered nervously. He saved me. The vow linked us without intent. Intent is irrelevant, said another. Resonance obeys will, not desire. Your frequencies have fused. Mason raised his hand. Hey, if it helps, I didn't mean to break your, whatever this is. Just trying to stop a war. The light figures turned toward him. You joke in judgment. He straightened, wincing as a shard of energy stabbed through his arm. Yeah, I joke in everything. It's a human thing. Keeps us sane. And do you believe yourself worthy of the bond? Nope, he said honestly. But maybe worth trying. The void shivered. Kaylin turned toward him, startled. The ancestors' light dimmed slightly, as if uncertainty had touched even them. Trying, they echoed softly. Then, show us the truth of your heart. The brightness around them warped again, and suddenly Mason stood on a battlefield, not the one from before, but a memory of thousands. Human soldiers charging alien phalanxes, skies on fire, oceans boiling from orbital strikes. He saw faces of both species twisted in fear and rage. Then the scene shifted, children, blue and human, hiding under rubble, reaching for each other. The ancestors' voices murmured through the storm. Pain unites as easily as love divides. What will you teach the bond, human? Mason's throat tightened. That we keep fighting even when it hurts. That we screw up, but we learn. That we try again. Kaylin appeared beside him, her glow gentler now. You would let your pain define you. No, he said. But it reminds us what's worth protecting. The light pulsed brighter, almost like approval. Then came another question. And what of her? Would you conquer her world still? He looked at Kaylin, and his smile faded into something solemn. Conquer? No. But I'll stand beside it, if it'll have me. The blue fire around her flared, reflecting in her eyes. Then perhaps it already does. The ancestors' forms wavered, dissolving into the surrounding light. Then the choice is made. Kaylin gasped. No, wait, what choice? The bond completes or collapses. There is no return. Mason looked to her. What happens if it completes? Our energies merge entirely, she said quickly. You'd cease to exist as human, and I as Etherian. He frowned. So, we'd become something new. Or nothing, she whispered. No one's ever survived it. He took a breath, steadying himself. Guess we'll find out. Mason, stop, she pleaded. You don't understand what you're offering. Sure I do, he said, stepping closer. You said this world judges will, right? Then mine says no one dies alone. Not even you. The ancestors' chorus swelled into thunder. Then the merge begins. Kaylin's hands trembled as she reached toward him. Once started, it cannot be undone. I wasn't planning on quitting halfway, he said, taking her hand. Their palms met, and light exploded outward. He gasped as energy poured into him, rivers of blue fire searing through his veins, burning and freezing at once. Kaylin screamed, her body fracturing into ribbons of light that wrapped around him. The void twisted, collapsing inward. Every nerve in his body felt stretched across galaxies. He saw flashes, her memories, her home under a violet sky, her people singing to crystal mountains, the first war that shattered their peace. Then his own memories folded into hers, childhood laughter, boot camp, brothers in arms lost in dust. The two streams collided, blended, and for one impossible heartbeat he felt everything. Then came the silence. When he opened his eyes, he was lying on solid ground. The sky above was blue, the real kind, streaked with soft clouds. The battlefield was gone. Around him stretched a field of glass-like grass shimmering faintly under sunlight. He pushed himself up, wincing. His armor was scorched, his body heavy, but alive. "Kaylin," he croaked. For a moment there was only wind. Then a voice answered inside his mind. "Here." He turned. She stood a few steps away, her skin now pale with a faint blue shimmer, her eyes no longer glowing but deep and human-like. "You," he whispered. "You look different." "So do you," she said softly. He glanced down. The veins under his skin pulsed faintly with light. "Guess we made it." Kaylin knelt beside him, her hand hovering near his cheek. "You shouldn't have survived." "Told you," he said, smiling weakly. "I make a habit of impossible things." She studied him with wonder and sadness. "The core is gone. The bond stabilized. Our minds, our souls, are linked now. So we're both half and half. More like one whole that refuses to choose," she murmured. He looked around. The land shimmered, half organic, half metallic, stretching into horizonless calm. "Where are we?" "Between worlds," she said. The merge created a threshold, a new state of being neither human nor Etherian. He laughed under his breath. "Great. We broke the universe." "Or repaired it," she said. "The ancestors are silent. That means acceptance or extinction." For hours, or maybe minutes, they wandered through the shimmering plain, each step leaving traces of light. Mason felt strength returning, but also something new, a faint awareness of Kaylin's thoughts, emotions, heartbeat, like a second pulse inside his mind. When she stumbled, he steadied her before realizing he'd sensed it before it happened. "You feel it too?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Our essences echo. Kinda intimate. Uncomfortably so." He smiled. "Guess I'll have to behave, then." A faint shimmer appeared on the horizon, a rippling curtain of gold light. Kaylin's gaze sharpened. The veil. It marks the edge of the resonance field. Beyond it lies whatever reality remains. "You mean we can go home?" She hesitated. If home still exists. The energy backlash might have destroyed the fleets above. Mason sighed. "Guess there's only one way to find out." She nodded, and they walked toward the light together. As they neared the veil, Kaylin paused. "If the ancestors were right, we may not belong anywhere now." "Then we'll make somewhere," Mason said simply. She looked at him, her eyes shimmering with unspoken gratitude. "You'd still choose this path? Even after what we've become?" "I don't even know what that is yet," he said. "But I know you're part of it. That's enough." The veil rippled as they touched it, heat and cold merging. On the other side, the world awaited, unknown, maybe ruined, maybe reborn. Kaylin took a deep breath, her hair flickering faintly blue again. "If we emerge, the bond will anchor itself permanently. You'll never be only human again." "Guess it's too late to ask for a refund," he said with a grin. "Come on. Let's see what we made." Together they stepped through the light. The ground trembled beneath them as reality reshaped. Above, the burning sky faded to dawn. The warships that once filled orbit were gone, leaving streaks of aurora that danced across the horizon. Mason blinked, disbelief washing over him. The air was quiet, not silent like death, but peaceful, filled with distant birdsong. Kaelin turned slowly, eyes wide. "They are gone," she whispered. "Both armies, gone." "No," he said, pointing. "Look." Far off in the distance, figures began to emerge, both human and Etherian survivors, walking across the glass fields in stunned silence. Weapons hung forgotten, eyes lifted to the sky. The auroras pulsed gently, blue and gold weaving together like a single heartbeat. Mason exhaled. "Looks like peace doesn't need diplomats after all." Kaelin smiled faintly. "Perhaps just fools who make impossible vows." He reached for her hand. "My favorite kind of fool." The horizon burned brighter, not with fire, but with life. The new dawn spread across the fused world like spilled gold, touching the glassgrass fields and the crystalline ridges with warmth that had never existed before. Mason stood on a rise overlooking what had once been a battlefield. Now it looked like a valley reborn, scattered with glimmers of both metal and leaf. He breathed deeply. The air was clean again, untainted by plasma smoke or human oil. His chest ached where old wounds should have been, yet the pain pulsed with blue light instead of blood. Kaelin approached quietly behind him, her bare feet whispering against the luminous ground. "Your body is adapting faster than mine," she said, her tone somewhere between wonder and envy. He looked down at his glowing veins and shrugged. "Guess humanity's too stubborn to reject new parts." She smiled faintly, but there was a weight behind her eyes. "The bond is stabilizing. That means soon it will choose equilibrium, either we remain as one or divide completely." He frowned. "And dividing means one of us dies." "Or both," she said. The core didn't create permanence, it offered a question. Mason turned to face her fully, the light wind tugging at what remained of his uniform. "Then we answer it together." She searched his face as if memorizing it. "You truly believe every wound can heal if you just refuse to quit?" "Yeah," he said softly. "That's kind of our species' superpower." They descended toward the valley floor where survivors had gathered, humans and Etherians, eyeing each other with equal parts awe and fear. Children clung to parents, soldiers without orders stared at their former enemies, waiting for someone to declare what came next. Mason could feel their confusion in the air, like static. Kaelin's hand brushed his. "They're afraid," she murmured. "They see what we've become and fear it means submission." He squeezed her fingers gently. "Then we'll show them it means something else." She tilted her head. "What? Unity through chaos?" "Through choice," he said. "Through being dumb enough to try again." When they reached the crowd, every eye turned toward them. A young Lieutenant Mason vaguely recognized stepped forward, helmet tucked under his arm. "Sergeant Hale." Mason blinked. "Yeah. Or what's left of him." The man's gaze flicked to Kaelin. "Is it true? Did you end it?" Mason looked to her, she gave a small nod. "The link is severed," she said. "No fleets remain. Only those who survived." Murmurs rippled through the ranks. Some dropped weapons, others fell to their knees. An Etherian warrior approached cautiously, his armor cracked but his eyes filled with something like relief. "You spoke to the ancestors?" he asked Kaelin. "What did they decree?" She looked around at them all. "They said the war was never theirs to end. It was ours." The crowd fell silent. Mason stepped forward, his voice rough. "Then let's stop acting like someone else is gonna fix it. You're alive. I'm alive. That's a start." A human medic snorted quietly. "Easy for you to say, hero." Mason met her eyes. "Not hero. Just tired." That drew a few quiet laughs, the first real sound of life in the valley. Kaelin's glow brightened a little, casting soft light across faces that had forgotten warmth. "The bond changed more than us," she said. "It changed the ground, the air, the energy. This planet is new, half of yours, half of mine. You'll have to learn to live with it." Days turned to weeks as makeshift camps became villages, then settlements. The fusion of worlds brought strange gifts, soil that grew crystal fruit, rivers that glowed faintly under starlight, storms that hummed instead of thundered. Humans learned to harness light instead of oil, Etherians learned to eat and laugh instead of meditate in silence. Mason worked alongside them, his strange hybrid energy making him both curiosity and symbol. Children followed him through the camps, daring each other to touch his glowing hand. He'd grin and say, "Careful, it'll tickle your atoms." Kaylin watched him with quiet affection, though the more he laughed, the dimmer her light became. One night, as twin moons rose over the horizon, she found him sitting by a lake of mirrored water. The reflection shimmered blue around his silhouette. "You're fading," he said without turning. She knelt beside him. "So are you." He shook his head. "Not like you. I can feel it, the bond's choosing. It's pulling toward me." She smiled gently. "Of course. Humans always take the burden. You're built for it." "Then fight it," he said, voice tight. "Don't let it erase you." "If I resist, we both unravel," she whispered. "If I surrender, something of me will live through you." "That's not living," he said. "That's theft." "No," she said, touching his cheek. "That's legacy." The wind rose, carrying faint harmonies, the voices of both species singing together for the first time in generations. Kaylin's glow flickered rhythmically with the song. "They've already begun to blend," she said softly. "Your world doesn't need gods or queens anymore. Just gardeners." Mason swallowed hard. "Don't talk like you're leaving." "I'm not leaving," she said. "I'm becoming." He caught her wrist, desperate. "Kaylin, there has to be another way." She smiled faintly. "There always is, but it always costs something. You taught me that." He wanted to argue, but the bond pulsed through them both, luminous threads rising from their joined hands. Light filled the valley again, soft and endless. The survivors looked up, startled, as streams of blue fire spiraled into the sky. Kaylin's voice echoed within every mind, human and Etherian alike. "The vow is fulfilled. Let no world claim dominion, for life itself is the only conquest." Mason shouted her name, but the sound drowned in radiance. She turned one last time, her eyes clear and calm. "You said you'd conquer my world for a kiss," she murmured. "Now you've given it one worth keeping." Then her form dissolved into pure light that wrapped around him like dawn. When the brilliance faded, the lake mirrored only a single figure. Mason stood at its edge, his reflection split in two halves, one human, one shimmering blue. The voice inside him was still there, quiet but steady. "I am here." He smiled through tears. "Guess that counts as happily ever after." He walked back toward the camp, the glow of his veins lighting the path ahead. Wherever he stepped, flowers of light bloomed briefly before fading, seeds of two worlds learning how to grow together. Years passed. The hybrid settlements became cities, then nations. The new generation had skin that shimmered faintly in moonlight and eyes that carried memory from both stars. They called themselves the Resonance, born of vow and flame. When elders asked about the man in the old stories, the one who ended the war, no one could say where he'd gone. Some said he walked into the horizon chasing auroras, others said he became them. But in every dawn, when the light touched the hills, a faint human voice could be heard in the wind, laughing softly as if at an old joke. And far above, beyond the clouds, the aurora burned eternally, blue fire and gold intertwined, shining brighter whenever someone whispered the story of the soldier who teased a goddess and changed two worlds with a kiss.